Right now on Morning News Now, state of emergency. Another brutal batch of severe weather pouring more relentless rain on Texas today in the wake of those devastating July 4th floods that claimed nearly 130 lives so far statewide. And now the Trump administration is facing some harsh criticism over its response to the disaster, but the White House is pushing back. We've got the latest. Also this morning, President Trump once again ramping up his global trade tirade, announcing a 30% tariff on all imports from two of America's top business allies, Mexico and the European Union. It's all set to start in just a few weeks, but what could it mean for your bottom line when you're grabbing those daily essentials? We are watching your wallet. Plus, the searing fallout this morning over the Trump administration's controversial call to all but close the book on the case of Jeffrey Epstein. Why some in the president's MAGA movement are now accusing the White House of a cover-up, calling on the nation's chief law enforcement officer to step aside. And Game, Set, Match later in the hour will take you across the pond for a Wimbledon wrap-up, the show-stopping weekend that proved to be one for the ages. It was a great match yesterday. Did you watch any of it?
Big sports weekend. Yeah, I did. Isn't it just fun to say across the pond?
Yeah, so is.
You sound so sophisticated every time you say that.
So true. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on a Monday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Sam Brock, in for Joe this morning.
And we're happy you're here, Sam. We're going to start this hour with the extreme weather hitting the Lone Star State again. Intense rain is falling in central Texas. It's packing floodwaters so powerful they destroyed another home. This one you see right here on your screen. And emergency crews are out in force rescuing people from cars that were trapped by the fast rising water.
So, Savannah, farther south in hard-hit Kirk County, there is yet another round of devastating flooding. Some searchers who were out looking for the more than 100 people still missing after July 4th's historic disaster had to pause their efforts because of the incoming weather. This morning, NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky is in Kerrville and has the very latest.
Yeah, good morning. And right now with this rain continuing to fall, there's a concern that we could see a replay of what happened yesterday. And that is when search crews had to abandon the river, at least temporarily, out of concerns that the river was going to rise yet again. And unfortunately, we are seeing storms all across the country dropping intense amounts of rainfall. Here in Kirk County, that number of the missing still sits at least 160 people. That has remained that for the last several days. Officials say that search and rescue crews have now transitioned into a recovery mode here along the 30 miles or so of river that runs through Kerr County. As it stands right now, we know that there are still families waiting to hear word on their loved ones, and conditions have been absolutely brutal here over the last several days between the debris that has created difficult terrain for crews to travel over, as well as just the temperature with it rising, getting incredibly hot. Bear in mind that some of the divers in this river have to deal with obstacles that we can't even see. Meanwhile, as questions continue to be raised over whether officials did everything they could to warn those in the flood's path, the city manager of Kerrville tells me that he was unsure if he had weather alerts on his phone the morning of the flood, saying that even if he did not, he has a dedicated team in place that keeps track of weather conditions. State leaders also telling me that one of the things they're going to be focusing on during this upcoming legislative session will be communication, saying that in some cases it appears that these summer camps relied on cell phones, and when the storm hit and those towers and service were knocked out, it left those camps cut off. Right now, back at the scene here in Kerrville alongside the Guadalupe River, the levels are remaining steady for now, but that could certainly change if this area continues to get more rain. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Morgan, thank you very much for your reporting. Well, farther west, fires are causing the biggest concern. Crews at the Grand Canyon are struggling to get a handle on the size of this fire. It's just exploding. It's along the canyon's north rim. It destroyed one of the historic lodges and has closed an access point for visitors to the iconic national park. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson reports for us.
The fury from two raging wildfires laying siege to the north rim of the Grand Canyon.
We are all getting evacuated right now.
Park officials confirming the historic Grand Canyon Lodge was consumed by flames, along with park administrative buildings, visitor facilities, and a wastewater treatment plant. The fire at that plant prompting a release of chlorine gas that can prove deadly.
We were starting to get panicked. We didn't want to lose our lives down there.
Jamie Coffin and her friend Amanda Travis among those forced to evacuate from that leak, getting out of the canyon by chopper.
We didn't know how close that would be, and we were trying to hurry and pack.
In total, some 50 to 80 structures now confirmed lost, all destroyed by the so-called Dragon Bravo fire, which quickly scorched at least 5,000 acres, and the larger White Sage fire exploding to tens of thousands of acres after a lightning strike Wednesday. The Grand Canyon hosts the nation's third most popular national park, last year with more than 4.9 million visits. The historic lodge there, constructed nearly 100 years ago, served as a mountain oasis for millions, the only real lodging inside the park on the more remote North Rim, now destroyed by flames.
Holy...
Crews racing to contain out-of-control flames, tearing down a piece of Americana, cutting off access to one of the world's great wonders. Steve Patterson, NBC News.
Steve, thank you so much. We are obviously off to a serious and stormy start to the week. We mentioned Texas earlier, Savannah, with flash flood threats across the country this morning.
Yeah, that's right. Michelle Grossman is here in studio tracking it all for us. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Great to see you. And yeah, it seems like these stories just keep going on and on. Week after week, we are looking at flooding events. We're looking at severe storm risks. And that will be the story again today. Looking at radar right now, we're looking at some showers and storms that are bringing heavy rainfall. We have a lot of moisture in the atmosphere across the country, especially in the eastern half of the nation. So any storm that will spark will bring out a lot of rain. We're seeing some storms, as Morgan mentioned, in portions of Texas where you see those brighter colors. Those are the heaviest rainfall. And that's what we're seeing. We're going to continue to see this all day long into Tuesday. And then we have a stationary front that's kind of draped across the northeast all the way back to the plains. Along this front is going to be like train tracks where we're seeing storms along this front, and we're going to see them training in areas, meaning they're going to stay over the same areas. So we could see a lot of rain, especially in portions of the mid-Atlantic. We're seeing some storms early this morning. Florida, we're seeing an area of low pressure here. That's going to bring the chance for heavy, heavy rain, not only today, but also tomorrow. So that is the story in terms of futurecast. There's that stationary front that I told you about. It's literally a front that stays in place. It's not moving very far, and that's why we're seeing those showers and storms along it. And then notice as we get through the later part of today into the evening hours, we're going to see that sun sparking those storms. So we're going to see scattered storms throughout portions of the New England, all the way down to the southeast, the Tennessee Valley, the mid-Mississippi Valley, into the southern plains. So you certainly need your umbrella today, and you need to stay vigilant and aware as you're out and about, especially driving with the chance of this flash flooding. Then tomorrow we're going to see more scattered storms and showers. Flood alerts are in place for 41 million people. We have them from the New England area into the mid-Atlantic where you see the green. That is a flood watch. But notice in Texas, that includes portions of central Texas and also hard-hit area of New Mexico. So all the places that we heard about last week that was hit hard by flash flooding, we're going to see that once again today. Rainfall forecast, look at this all across the country through Tuesday. The northern tier of the nation looking at the chance for severe storms and heavy rainfall. Minneapolis, O'Neill, and then the eastern half, New York City, Philadelphia, D.C., Baltimore, the big cities. If you're flying out today, you want to call ahead down to Charlotte, and look at Tampa and portions of central and southern Florida. Heavy, heavy rain there. We could see up to 5 inches of rain locally over the next 2 days. It's an area of low pressure just pulling in tropical moisture. So as I mentioned, a lot of moisture in the air. Severe weather threat also, especially in the northern tier of the nation. But notice, including the major cities along the I-95 corridor from Philadelphia to New York City, also Baltimore, could see some stronger thunderstorms. That's including the heavy rainfall that we expect too.
It feels like deja vu. Didn't we just do this last week? And
it
the week
does.
Before that as
and
well?
That's the thing. It's like we're not getting that break, right? That's a climate connection where things are not budging. So much moisture in the air, and that's where we're having the problem.
Storms move slower, like you keep on mentioning to us.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Well, let's circle back to those floods in Texas. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem defended the government's response to the disaster in an interview yesterday with Meet the Press moderator, our friend Kristen Welker. Noem pushed back on criticism that her policies slowed down the response. Here's Kristen with more.
Hello there, Savannah and Sam. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem about claims her policies held up the government's emergency response to the floods in Texas. Disasters often cost millions, if not billions of dollars. You've acknowledged there is this policy you implemented to sign off on contracts that exceed $100,000. Why add extra red tape when there is a crisis of this magnitude?
It's not extra red tape. It's making sure everything is getting to my level and that it's immediately responded to. This was not slowed down at all. In fact, it was much more responsive. If you remember, I was there. I was standing right there long before this report ever came out, and people were asking and we were granting permission in real time. So the false reporting has been something that is inappropriate, and it's something that I think we need to clear up, and that this response was by far the best response we've seen out of FEMA, the best response we've seen out of the federal government in many, many years, and certainly much better than what we saw under Joe Biden.
You can see my full interview and a lot more at meetthepress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much. Let's get into all of these moving parts from D.C. right now with NBC News White House correspondent Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, great to see you, my friend. We know that the president and Noam there had floated the idea of axing FEMA altogether. Kristen pressing Noam on the president's proposal during the interview on Meet the Press. We just heard that. What did she have to say about it?
Right. Good morning, guys. Kristi Noem was explicit that the president does not intend to end FEMA as the country knows it. She instead says that FEMA, they intend to have it redeployed and sent to states in a new, more effective way, is the argument that Kristi Noem is making, one in which they are going to serve as a support capacity. But she suggested that there are other federal resources, from military to Border Patrol, that in this instance were able to step in and support state emergency response teams along with FEMA. And so, of course, that is usually the role that FEMA typically plays in natural disasters, that support capacity. So there's distinctions that are not being made clear by this administration, but that does run counter Noem's commitment to keeping FEMA in place to the president's suggestions over the last 7 months that he wanted to end FEMA completely. Of course, this is a change in tune after this flooding disaster in Texas, but one that would call into further question of exactly just how do they intend to revamp FEMA, and to what extent does the president agree with his DHS secretary's assessment that it is here to stay.
Vaughn, also, aside from that, when we talk about FEMA, there's also this conversation about whether federal staffing cuts may have impacted the ability to prepare for extreme weather events like the floods in Texas, to forecast them, and very importantly, to get that information out to people who live in those areas. Tell us about the latest on that.
Exactly. There is still scrutiny of what took place in Texas and the extent to which staffing cuts, including at NOAA, 2,000 staffing cuts, could have impacted the ability for officials on the ground and for locals to appropriately respond. I think that we are still a ways away from knowing or being able to fully analyze the exact consequences of federal budget cuts, but particularly when it comes to NOAA, the nominee to head the agency just last week went before the Senate during the confirmation process and suggested that he supported staffing up NOAA and its offices to ensure that communities like those in Texas have the proper resources. But this is where the president himself has pushed back, suggesting that there were no negative consequences, and that this was a once-in-a-generation flood that took place in Texas. But of course, others on the ground pushed back vehemently against the suggestion that there couldn't be more that could be done at a federal and local level to better prepare for similar situations moving forward.
And by the way, ahead of the heart of hurricane season, we'll see how much this conversation continues to evolve on. While we have you, just switching gears for a second here, we understand President Trump is meeting with NATO's Secretary General later today after the president said he would be sending weapons to Ukraine after all. On top of that, the president has also been pretty vocal in his criticism of Russian President Vladimir Putin. So break it all down for us. What's the latest with that situation?
Right. These are big moves, and one that the president has continued to defend. The U.S. sending NATO, specifically air defense missile systems. This after months of calling into question whether the U.S. would remain committed to defending Ukraine and its war of defense from Russian aggression. And I want to let you listen to the president here, who is making it clear that the U.S. will continue to provide these missile defense systems to NATO, who will then in turn provide them to Ukraine. Take a listen.
We basically are going to send them various pieces of very sophisticated military, and they're going to pay us 100% for them. And that's the way we want it. We will send them Patriots, which they desperately need, because Putin really surprised a lot of people. He talks nice, and then he bombs everybody in the evening. So there's a little bit of a problem there, and I don't like it.
For the last year, NATO and European allies questioned whether the U.S., if the President Trump were to get into the White House, would remain committed to Ukraine's defenses. And the president here in the summer of 2025 indicating that the U.S. military will continue to support Ukraine, at least for now at this moment, guys.
All right, Vaughn, covering a lot for us this morning. Thank you.
A lot going on in D.C. clearly right now. On another front, President Trump is taking heat from some of his most loyal supporters over the administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. At a weekend gathering hosted by conservative group Turning Point USA, many in attendance expressed outrage at Attorney General Pam Bondi after she released a memo saying there was no further evidence to reveal in this case. That, of course, coming, the backdrop here, months after the AG said on Fox News in February, there was an Epstein client list sitting on my desk. NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor has more on the growing rift.
Growing fallout over the Trump administration effectively closing the case of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, as many of the president's supporters demand more information.
How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation? Clap.
This weekend in Florida, Epstein, a frequent topic at a summit hosted by the conservative group Turning Point USA.
The reason why we wanted Trump to be president is because he's supposed to get rid of the corruption, drain the swamp, not to protect people that are in Jeffrey Epstein's files.
The uproar comes after Attorney General Pam Bondi, the DOJ, and FBI issued an unsigned memo that said there is no additional evidence to reveal in the Epstein case. That enraged many in the MAGA base who are accusing Bondi and the Trump administration of a cover-up. In a sign of where things stand, Bondi joining President Trump at the FIFA Club World Cup final. That after the president posted online saying, Attorney General Pam Bondi is doing a fantastic job. Let's not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein. But that hasn't quieted the fervor or the questions. A source who has spoken to Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino tells NBC News that Bongino is threatening to quit and torch Pam unless she's fired.
Do you have confidence in Attorney General Pam Bondi?
I do. America is safer with Pam Bondi as Attorney General.
Still, Elon Musk, once a close Trump ally and now a frequent critic, posting that the president should just release the files as promised. Meanwhile, as this is dividing the so-called MAGA movement, some Democrats are also using this controversy over the Epstein files to criticize the president. One Democratic senator said this fight is a sign of the chaos and disorder within the Trump administration. Back to you.
All right, Yamiche, thank you. Well, it's been just over a year since the attempt on President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania. And now a new Senate report on the attempted assassination is calling for more severe disciplinary action to be taken against the Secret Service.
So then the presidential candidate at the time, Mr. Trump, was grazed, as you recall, by a bullet, during which that rally was fired by 20-year-old gunman Thomas Crooks. The incident raising pointed questions about how Crooks was able to avoid detection by the Secret Service for almost 45 minutes. The new report from the Senate has revealed, quote, multiple unacceptable failures in the Secret Service's planning and response, and criticized the agency for insufficient accountability following that attack.
A lot to unpack here. Let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin. She joins us from Washington. Julie, good morning. What more can you tell us about this report?
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Well, look, it was a report that was long awaited, and the Republican chair of the Homeland Security Committee that prepared this report, Senator Rand Paul, called this failure unacceptable. He said that 4 different times were requests denied for additional security from the Trump campaign at the time. They also said, like you mentioned, that no accountability was taken. Rand Paul over the weekend, for example, pointing to the fact that there was just one resignation, the ex-Secret Service chief, after Republicans and Democrats, by the way, suggested that she lied in her testimony to Congress. But other than that, Rand Paul pointed out that after he sent subpoenas, only then did several agents get pulled from duty. But he said that nobody was fired and that this was a failure, despite the president himself defending the job that the agents did on that day. I want to read you a statement from this report saying, quote, this was not a single error. It was a cascade of preventable failures that nearly cost President Trump his life. The American people deserve better. So I assume this is not the end of the road. This report, of course, now out 1 year since that shooting, guys.
Yeah, and not surprisingly, a damning report at that. Now to a split screen here, Julie. In other news from the Hill, Democratic and Republican officials touring that new immigration detention center in Florida's Everglades over the weekend. Both parties offering wildly different descriptions of the center that's being called Alligator Alcatraz. After their visits, what are we hearing from lawmakers?
Yeah, extremely. Nothing new, guys, right? That every single topic nowadays has wildly different depictions and descriptions of sometimes the same reality. And that is exactly what we're seeing with Alligator Alcatraz. This facility, of course, controversial, opened last month, unveiled by the president, by Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, and by Governor DeSantis of Florida. Over the weekend, we saw Democratic officials from here in Washington take a look inside. They, of course, represent districts in Florida. Here's a look at what we heard from them. Excuse me.
The conditions that we saw inside this internment camp, which it is nothing less than that description, were really appalling.
When they let us in to see the cages, and we saw people, of course, yelling for help, it was very emotional to be there for all of us, to hear that, and to see that our taxpayer money is being used for this.
Now, you see Democrats, fellow Democrats, standing behind him during that visit. Meanwhile, we heard a strong defense from not only Noem over the weekend with our own Kristen Welker, saying these facilities are up to the highest standards, rejecting those claims by Democrats who call those prison cells. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, for example, saying that more than 30 people are held in one of those rooms at a time. You heard state officials, Republicans, who also visited the facility, praising it, saying that this is a great idea, that these conditions are good for these people, these undocumented migrants who are being put there. Of course, they also have an option, according to DeSantis, to be directly deported from there. This facility is on near a flight path, and so that is an option available for them, and something the Democrats also raised concerns about over the weekend when they talk about due process.
Julie, also both the House and Senate back in session this week tackle some of these agenda items for the Trump administration. What are they going to focus on?
Well, the big agenda item for the week is trying to cut back about $9 billion in spending that the government already put out there, already appropriated and signed into law. This is really controversial, not only among Democrats, who, of course, are not going to provide any votes for this effort. This is something the Trump administration wants Republicans in the Senate and the House to tackle. But this is something that Republicans in the Senate also take issue with. Susan Collins, who is the chair, the person who has control over the Appropriations Committee, that's kind of who controls the purse strings of the government. She wants changes to this piece of legislation. They want to cut back funding from foreign funds, aid that goes to different countries in the form, for example, of PEPFAR, a life-saving program that helped millions with HIV and AIDS, and also funding to public broadcasting. That includes public weather alerts, and that is something that, of course, is being talked about a lot, given those catastrophic floods in Texas. So a long road ahead for the Senate this week, but President Trump putting the pressure on them. He wants it done this week.
Yeah, it seems pretty relevant in terms of the urgency of some of those dollars right now. Thank you, Julie.
No kidding. All right, well, President Trump is ramping up his global trade war against two of America's largest trading partners. So he announced 30% tariffs on all imports from Mexico and also the European Union on Saturday. These are set to begin on August 1st.
Yeah, the roller coaster continues. The move has many business owners concerned about their bottom lines and being forced to pass their expenses onto their customers. Reporter Emma Goss from our NBC affiliate in the Bay Area explains.
Fresh food comes at a high price these days for shoppers and for store owners, like Maria Guadalupe Lopez, whose 9 grocery stores have been eating the extra costs of many imports. Now, she says the threat of higher tariffs on imports from Mexico and Europe are too steep to absorb.
I think we have reached the limit. At this point, there's no way that we can, keep eating those costs, because otherwise we're going to go out of business. And unfortunately, that's the fact for every small business.
Meaning you'll be paying more for imports like olive oil from Italy and fresh tomatoes and avocados from Mexico.
I am extremely concerned because every tariff that comes into effect, regardless what country it comes from, is an increment on groceries. It's an increment on the consumer. It's an increment on the food on the table.
And it's not just the price of food that could be going up. This Mexican market imports all kinds of things, from laundry detergent to party supplies from Mexico.
The owner of Fiesta Mexicana in East San Jose said her business and many other Mexican markets in the area are already struggling. Fears of ICE arrests in the area have hurt business. She says higher tariffs will too.
Consumers and businesses should be concerned because there is no time to bring products in early to offset the incoming tariffs. Everything is going to cost more over time.
The European Commission president responded to the announcement, threatening retaliatory tariffs. Mexican officials pushing back, saying these new tariffs are unfair treatment. The president warning of even higher tariffs if either trade partner retaliates.
And our thanks to Emma Goss for that report. Well, for now, neither Mexico nor the European Union have retaliated, but the European Union says it has $100 billion of retaliatory tariffs on standby.
All right, to break this all down, Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver joining us now. And Caleb, good morning. Look, we saw on Friday the market reactions when Trump threatened new tariffs for Brazil and other countries. Now we're talking about the EU and Mexico. What is your anticipation of what the market stability or lack thereof is going to look like later today?
I don't think we're going to see a sell-off like we saw post-Liberation Day. I think the markets and investors are not quite sure if we're going to go through with these tariffs, so I think there's been a little bit of recovery there, obviously. But also, we don't know if these are actually going to come to pass or whether there's going to be retaliatory tariffs, so investors are kind of caught in this limbo. In the absence of concrete information, they've been bidding the market higher. We saw some softness on Friday. You'll probably see it today. It'll be choppy until we get to August 1st, but I think the big sell-off is done, and investors are now focused on corporate profits. This is the week that earnings season begins. We're going to start to hear from companies of whether or not they're going to absorb this or pass it on to customers.
You mentioned Liberation Day. People may remember that day back in April where, I mean, people were stressed out, like just in a day, seeing the savings wiped out, seeing 401ks wiped out. Maybe it's a little relief to hear that you don't think it's going to be quite like that, but what can people anticipate and what's your advice to them?
My advice to them is, since we don't know, keep doing what you're doing. And what people have been doing is buying the stock market. And the stock market was dancing around record highs last week. We'll probably stay around there as we go through earnings season. Corporate profits have actually gotten better. Consumers are still spending. Now, this could change everything come August 1st. But as we know, everything changes on an hour-by-hour, day-by-day basis.
It sounds like you're saying companies and investors have been burned already, believing too strongly that these tariffs were actually going to be implemented. So now it's more of a wait-and-see approach. I want to turn your attention to one other story that's making headlines this morning. This has to do with a ABC News interview that was done with the National Economic Council director. Here's what he said. He said that Trump has the ability to fire Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. This has been a topic of conversation, whether or not that's within the president's authority, for weeks now, if not longer. What does he actually have the capability of doing?
Well, the Fed chair can be fired for incompetence or for performing poorly in his job. Now, what does that actually mean? The Fed is responsible for setting monetary policy, and it's trying to keep inflation in check and employment pretty full here. And we have both of those things happening right now. But now the Office of Management and Budget is focused on the Fed's renovations. The Fed has been undergoing a $2 billion renovation of the campus of the Federal Reserve for a few years now. Really hasn't been touched up in many, many years. So they're focused on that, saying they're trying to turn it into a Versailles. And maybe they use that as a wedge to say, the Fed chair has been in charge of this renovation. Maybe we'll fire him for mismanaging the renovation of the Federal Reserve's campus in Washington, D.C.
Interesting. So the construction of Versailles is actually what's going to get in the way of...
Exactly. When monetary policy is actually the thing that matters, and that's what the Fed is in control of. But the Fed has been under pressure for a long time. We know the way the president feels about President Trump. There'll probably be a shadow Fed chair appointed in the next couple of months here.
Oof. All right, Caleb, we know you'll talk us through it all. Thank you so much.
All right, coming up next, more on Morning News Now. That includes the latest that we're getting on the violence in the Middle East that's now throwing hopes of a possible ceasefire deal in Gaza into question.
First, though, after the break, tragedy strikes Kentucky, the bluegrass state reeling from a deadly shooting spree that left at least 2 dead. What we know this morning about that investigation up next.
And welcome back. We have new information now and new details about a tragic shooting spree in Kentucky on Sunday, which started with an attack on a state trooper and ended at a church. At least 2 people are dead, several others injured, including that state trooper. NBC News correspondent George Solis has the very latest on the investigation.
Tragedy unfolding in the bluegrass state after a deadly shooting at a church just outside Lexington, Kentucky.
Something like this has a huge impact on our community.
The rampage leaving 2 dead and 3 others injured, including a Kentucky state trooper, according to authorities. Police say the tense moments unfolding after the suspect was pulled over by the trooper near the Bluegrass Airport. Authorities say the suspect, who has not been identified, shot the trooper and took off. Police tracking a stolen car and suspect to the Richmond Road Baptist Church just outside Lexington.
Preliminary information indicates that the suspect may have had a connection to the individuals at the church.
3 Lexington police officers shot and killed the suspect on the scene, according to officials. The two victims identified as 72-year-old Beverly Gum and 32-year-old Christina Combs. The other men rushed to a nearby hospital, one in critical, the other in stable condition. And just over an hour away in Louisville, panic erupting after what authorities described as an active aggressor targeting a youth basketball tournament.
Everyone is running down the stairs and there's chaos.
Authorities saying some people were injured fleeing. Back in Lexington, the wounded trooper is in stable condition as the investigation continues. George Solis, NBC News.
Let's turn to overseas news. Now we're going to head to the Middle East, where new violence in Gaza is raising questions about the fate of a hoped-for ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas.
Heartbreaking news here. At least 8 Palestinians, including 6 children, were killed in a central Gaza attack while collecting water yesterday. The Israeli military said the missile was meant to hit a jihadist militant in the area, but missed its target due to what the Israeli government called a technical error.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us from Tel Aviv with more on this. Matt, good morning. What can you tell us about this incident and the latest on the ground in Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, what we're hearing is a rare sort of, regret from the Israeli military. They said that they were going to be looking into this incident. They said that they regretted it, which is tantamount to something like an apology. But this was an airstrike by a drone that killed 6 children, as you mentioned, among 10 people who were killed while waiting in line for water. And one of the reasons why this is so vexing amidst all of the death that we've been seeing in the Gaza Strip is because of these repeated shootings at aid distribution sites, some of them belonging to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is run by, which is an American-Israeli organization or backed by American and Israeli governments. And also we're seeing this at United Nations aid distribution sites. So really what we're seeing here are people being killed en masse while waiting for relief. And that means that basically staying alive in the Gaza Strip really can get you killed.
Just atrocities on atrocities, and of course how tenuous this whole situation is. It comes amidst ongoing ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas. So what do we know about how this particular deadly strike could strain a possible deal?
I don't know if this particular strike will strain a possible deal. We have to remember, guys, that there are dozens of people dying in the Gaza Strip every day, and yet these negotiations continue. No individual strike, no matter how appalling or egregious, or no matter how much the Israeli military says that they were mistaken, are going to do anything more to affect these negotiations than anything that we've already been seeing for the past year and a half. Remember, more than 55,000 people have been killed in the Gaza Strip ever since October 7th. This, according to Palestinian health authorities in the Gaza Strip. But these negotiations aren't going well for reasons that have lasted for months. It's the same fissure that is dividing Israel and Hamas. Territory, the question of withdrawal, the issue of ending the fighting. This is something that Hamas has insisted on. They want to see the Israelis completely withdraw from the Gaza Strip and end the fight there. The Hamas has said, or the Israelis for their part have said that they will not do that until they see Hamas fully dismantled and essentially either give up their arms or see its leaders exiled elsewhere or see them killed and all of the hostages released. These are two positions that are entirely at odds with each other, and they are the same positions that have made these negotiations so difficult for the past several months.
Some important broader context there. Thank you, Matt.
All right, well, coming up, could America's electric vehicle market soon run out of battery?
After the break, why President Trump's newly minted tax and spending package might just have the industry losing its charge in the near future. We'll explain next. Welcome back. Oxygen-rich hyperbaric chambers can be helpful in treating things like burns and carbon monoxide poisoning. But they are not without risk, as a recent story out of Arizona demonstrates. A physical therapist there was killed in a fire that ignited while he was inside one of those chambers. His death sparking concerns about giving these kinds of treatments outside of a hospital setting.
There are new concerns over the safety of some hyperbaric chambers after a physical therapist in Lake Havasu, Arizona, Walter Foxcroft, died this week inside one of his wellness clinic's own chambers, according to the Lake Havasu Fire Department. The devices are sealed enclosures where the pressure can increase 2 to 3 times the normal atmospheric pressure, and users can breathe 100% oxygen. The local fire department saying the first arriving crews identified smoke throughout the building and an intact hyperbaric chamber that appeared to have had a flash fire in the chamber with one patient inside. The 43-year-old, a father and husband, was the owner of Havasu Health and Hyperbarics, according to the company's website. The flash fire and circumstances are under investigation. A graduate of the University of Arizona and a Wildcats mascot, Foxcroft's being remembered by Arizona's cheerleading team, which posted on Instagram. Wally was an unforgettable presence on the sidelines, an energetic, charismatic performer known for his signature moonwalk and passion for bringing joy to Arizona fans. His death marks the second time this year someone has died from a fire in a hyperbaric chamber. The other, a 5-year-old boy from Michigan, killed in January, undergoing treatment for ADHD and sleep apnea. Neither are currently on the approved FDA list of treatable conditions using hyperbaric chambers. John Peters is the executive director of the Undersea and Hyperbaric Medical Society, which promotes responsible and safe use of hyperbaric medicine.
How tightly regulated is the industry?
It is not tightly, it's not regulated hardly at all. So the regulations really stem around equipment and the envelope that the equipment lives in.
NBC News has reached out to Arizona state health officials who have not yet responded for comment. Hyperbaric chambers have seen a rapid growth in popularity in recent years. Famously used by Michael Jackson years ago, now embraced by the likes of LeBron James.
For athletes, it's kind of a no-brainer if you can kind of have the time and the investment to use it.
Michael Phelps in his record-breaking 2012 Olympics.
Michael sleeps in a hyperbaric chamber to increase his lung capacity.
And Justin Bieber.
I strongly believe in it.
The FDA has cleared hyperbaric oxygen therapy for certain conditions, but Peter says it's a relatively limited scope, like those recovering from radiation therapy or vascular disease.
When you hear Justin Bieber promoting this kind of treatment or athletes, why is that?
Young, healthy individuals, there's really a lack of evidence as to what effect it will have on a normally functioning individual.
What's left now? A family in grief and countless questions after tragedy struck this town in western Arizona and what regulation might come from it.
And that really is the question. So obviously, this is incredibly tragic. The FDA only approves hyperbaric oxygen treatment for like 13 specific causes. And the reality is there's wellness centers all over the country that are marketing them for dozens upon dozens, in some cases, hundreds of treatments.
Wow.
So I would expect to see more regulation on that front.
Oh, absolutely. So sad. Thank you, Sam. All right. Well, a provision tucked inside President Trump's tax and spending bill is set to end the electric vehicle tax credit. That's a big incentive for many in September. Now, some companies like Tesla are urging customers to buy a car now before it kicks in. NBC's Chase Kane explains how this is just one part of a broader, bumpy road for the industry's future.
Could the electric vehicle industry here in the U.S. soon lose its charge? After years of steady growth, hybrid and electric vehicles now making up more than a fifth of new car sales. Enjoying the backing of the Biden administration,
we're building the future of the electric vehicle.
Now enter a fossil fuel-friendly Trump White House.
We will drill, baby, drill.
And an about-face with potentially major long-term consequences on the industry.
We ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate.
The biggest threat to EVs now lodged in President Trump and congressional Republicans' new budget bill, killing a $7,500 EV tax credit, a move that kicks in at the end of September and taking away one of the biggest incentives for car buyers. And the White House also finding other ways to drive a shift away from electric vehicles, pulling billions in funding to build crucial charging stations across the country, killing Biden-era rules that required automakers to build cars more efficiently year by year, and rolling back the previous White House's goal of getting half of all new cars to be electric by 2030, moves that are jolting the industry. Major EV projects, including factories in states like Georgia, South Carolina, Arizona, which promised thousands of jobs and were worth billions, paused or outright canceled. Analysts watching the space seeing the industry cruising down a dark road.
A repeal of the tax credit, the $7,500, then margins will go lower.
Just a year ago, researchers at Bloomberg saw the share of EV vehicles on the road at nearly 50% by 2030. Now, considering the Trump administration's goals, that number revised down by nearly half. Not helping things is the growing public animosity toward one of the electric vehicle industry's biggest names and brands, Elon Musk and his company Tesla, after his stint working in the administration and cutting government spending.
Elon Musk has got to go.
Protests popped up at dealerships, Teslas vandalized on the streets, and charging stations targeted by arsonists. Many Tesla owners putting their politics on their bumpers with stickers like this one. I bought this before we knew Elon was crazy. The impact on Tesla's business, undeniable. Sales down more than 10% in the first half of 2025. And those trying to sell aren't getting much these days. The cost of a used Tesla plummeting from more than $67,000 only 3 years ago to just over $28,000 now, about the same as your average used car. For some, though, politics has nothing to do with an aversion to electric cars. Like those who worry there just aren't enough charging stations in their area, afraid they'll run out of juice on the road.
You're dependent on these high-speed chargers. And if one or two of them go down, you're waiting in line. Yeah, I get anxious over that.
Many car companies poured resources into taking pickups electric, only for some customers to find the battery-operated trucks didn't pack that heavy-duty punch they liked from their gas-powered ones. Maybe the biggest losers in all this, though, are environment and our health, because fewer EVs on the road could keep transportation as the country's biggest contributor to climate change. There are emissions from manufacturing EVs and their batteries, but even accounting for that and the electricity used to charge them, multiple estimates show that over the life of an EV, they'll emit just a fraction of the pollution of gas-powered vehicles, which produce nearly a third of the country's emissions. Big picture, some estimates show air pollution causing more than 100,000 deaths in the U.S. every year. And while America may be turning away from electric, most of the world is surging in the opposite direction. One estimate has global sales up 25% versus last year, fueled by growth in places like Europe and China, which sold almost 2/3 of all electric cars hitting the road last year. International competition, one reason U.S. automakers may be staying in this lane. Our Tom Costello sat down with the chairman of Ford.
Unfortunately, we're in a very uncertain time now. On the EV market itself, it is still growing. People that have them love them. People that have them don't want to go back. But you're correct, they didn't grow as quickly as forecast.
But with a president who makes EVs sound like public enemy number one,
not everybody wants an electric car. I don't want an electric car.
An industry whose future once looked bright could now start to power down. Chase Kane, NBC News.
All right, Savannah, I'm going to give you a jolt right now. Coming up next, a weekend of Wimbledon finals. Did you catch any of this?
I did.
Yeah.
It's always great to see. When Morning News Now returns, we've got a full recap of everything you might have missed across the pond, as Sam likes to say, over the weekend. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We are back with a development in DNA research that seems like it is straight out of Jurassic Park. A group of scientists are making progress on reviving a species of bird that was hunted to extinction hundreds of years ago. What could possibly go wrong? NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra has a closer look.
Oh, my God. It looks like a work of science fiction.
There were 9 species of these dinosaur-sized giant birds.
But this big bird, the long-lost New Zealand native moa, may be making a colossal comeback.
It was a 13.5-foot, 500-pound bird.
It's the latest endeavor from genetic engineering company Colossal Biosciences, trying to bring back extinct creatures from the past, like the direwolf and the woolly mammoth.
Why this bird, of all the birds?
We as humanity actually hunted them to extinction about 600 years ago. So it's a way to kind of undo the sins of the past.
Colossal says the science behind the so-called de-extinction involves extracting DNA from ancient bones or fossils and editing genes of its closest current relatives to eventually create an embryo or egg of the archaic animal. Procuring the necessary DNA for the moa bird became much easier once a familiar name entered the ring.
We want to be able to give the moa, a natural environment.
None other than Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson, partnering with Colossal to resurrect this quintessentially New Zealand bird.
He's not just a passive investor. He actually has a collection of 300 to 400 moa bones.
But as Jurassic Park prophesized, sometimes things can go very wrong.
Clever girl.
Concerns that keep ecologists like Dave Strayer up at night.
These are amazing technologies. They produce enormous benefits to conservation, but they should not be deployed naively. We have lots of things that have gotten loose from supposedly secure facilities.
The team at Colossal says the gamble is worth the payoff.
I think the best thing that we can do for humanity is to bring the biodiversity crisis to the forefront, but do it in a way that's exciting.
He's betting on a future where, with a little luck and a whole lot of science, even extinction can be rewritten. Marissa Parra, NBC News.
Oof. I don't know.
Yeah, my reaction as well. To Marissa's point, didn't we see what happened when you mess with Mother Nature? Did you watch Jurassic Park?
Like we
Doesn't
said,
turn
what
out
could
well.
go wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Famous last words. There are a pair of new names written into Wimbledon history this morning. The men's and women's finals over the weekend wrapped up a thrilling tournament at the most prestigious Grand Slam of the year.
That is right. During the final weekend of matches, Jannik Sinner and Iga Swiatek conquered the famous grass courts in London to be crowned the newest Wimbledon champions.
Tennis writer for The Athletic, Charlie Eccleshare, joining us now to wrap up this year's exciting Wimbledon tournament. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. The men's a little more exciting than the women's. That was a historic blowout, but it was a rematch of the epic French Open final that pitted Carlos Alcaraz against Jannik Sinner. This time around, Sinner coming out on top to win his first Wimbledon title. What stood out to you about the style and the rivalry developing between these two men?
Well, I mean, I think the most impressive thing was that Jannik Sinner 5 weeks ago suffered pretty much the ultimate disappointment in tennis. He had championship points in a Grand Slam final and didn't win. He had 3. No man's ever had that many. So for him to come back and rebound against Alcaraz, who'd beaten him 5 times in a row, I just think is the most unbelievable display of character. And yeah, that's going to be my abiding memory, that he was able to do it. And, you know, having failed to serve it out in Paris, having missed those championship points, that he didn't blink this time around. You know, there was no hangover from that. If anything, it seemed to just stiffen his resolve and make him all the more determined to get the win this time.
Oh, all right, let's talk about the ladies. As Sam mentioned, this was a tough one. Iga Swiatek, she won her first Wimbledon, but it was over this American. She's pretty young. It was sort of a surprise when she beat Sabalenka in the round before, but this is Amanda Anisimova. She won without even losing a single game in the final. This is new to me that it's known as a double bagel.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the wrong side of a double bagel.
That's right. Just how rare is that? Talk us through this.
Well, I mean, the last time it happened at Wimbledon was 1911. Wow. So it's never happened at Wimbledon in the Open era, which started in 68. And the only other time it's happened at a Grand Slam in that period was at the French Open in, I think it was 1988. So this is very, very rare. And it's so rare that Natasha Zvereva was the last person who it happened to. And you hear her name occasionally in Grand Slam finals. If someone gets off to a good start and you think, oh, I hope this isn't a Zvereva type situation. And her name did start being murmured in the press seats, and we all kind of had this horrible fear from about 3-love onwards that maybe this could happen. But yeah, it was pretty awkward, I have to say, pretty uncomfortable. Because, you know, that's the ultimate fear for a tennis player. You know, anyone who's played tennis at any level knows this can happen. You can lose love and love. But, it was just excruciating, really, because, you know, it was kind of watching someone's dream, everyone's dream, everyone who ever picks up a tennis racket, turning into a nightmare in front of 15,000 people there and millions around the world.
Oh.
It should be noted Anisimova made it to a Grand Slam final, which is an incredible lifelong achievement. But yes, I certainly see your point there. I guess I would ask, so she got really far. Taylor Fritz on the men's side made it all the way to the semifinals. Looking forward now to the U.S. Open, which is coming up in a matter of weeks. Which Americans, be it Fritz or, you know, Frances Tiafoe, has traditionally had some really strong runs in recent years? Pegula, who do you see? Who are you keeping your eye on for the U.S. Open?
Yeah, I mean, Fritz obviously got to the final last year at the US Open, and he's just come off the semi here. He's, you know, if one of Sinner or Alcaraz falters, then, you know, he's got to be thinking he's got a decent chance. Ben Shelton's another really exciting player. He got to the semis at the US a couple of years ago, you know, in this kind of his first proper season breakthrough. He loves it there. Tiafoe, yeah, he doesn't come in on the best of form from Wimbledon. He had a good run at the French Open, got to the quarters there. He loves it in New York. He comes alive at the US Open. And then on the women's side, yeah, Pegula, Coco Gauff, obviously, you know, she had an early Wimbledon exit, but she's just won the French Open, won the US a couple of years ago. Madison Keys won the Australian Open. There are so many women on the American side. And Anisimova. I mean, yeah, you know, we think about this, the awfulness of the final, but getting to the final was a big breakthrough, and hopefully she learns from that and can kick on.
Hard to remember a time where there was this much energy and excitement about American players.
So true.
It's been years.
Yeah.
So, Charlie Eccleshare, thank you so much for sharing some insight today.
Coming up, he risked it all to save the lives of countless churchgoers.
And now a heroic deacon is getting some new wheels, all thanks to one community that is turning tragedy into triumph. Stay with us. That story's next.
We're going to end this hour with the heartfelt gift one deacon received after he risked his life to save his church community.
This is just awesome. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster has the story of how a spur-of-the-moment act of heroism is being recognized.
But that doesn't mean that we didn't have.
The live stream showed parishioners inside a Michigan church hearing gunshots and scrambling for cover.
Please, everybody come to the back.
But outside, just moments before, Deacon Richard Pryor was in his Ford F-150 running late for church that Sunday morning in June when he saw a gunman approaching the building wearing a tactical vest.
It wasn't a smile, it wasn't a smirk. He just kind of looked at me and he just turned and continued walking.
With a gun in hand?
Yeah.
He called 911, but knowing even seconds were critical, Pryor struck the gunman with his truck, giving church security time to take out the suspect, helping to save dozens of lives.
He put a round through my truck that disabled my truck.
The incident leaving Pryor without a truck to use. But now,
Thank you.
a local Ford dealership gifting Pryor a prepaid 2-year lease on a brand new F-150.
I was overwhelmed. It was hard for me to kind of keep my emotions under control.
A more than 400 horsepower reward for his massive act of bravery.
All of us are capable of protecting each other.
A grateful community celebrating a deacon's heroic instincts. Shaquille Brewster, NBC News.
That is a courage profile and courage.
Oh, my goodness. Amazing.
Well, that does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning, and thank you for starting your week with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Sam Brock in for Joe Fryer. Good to be with you right now on Morning News Now. Search efforts stalled. Heavy rains and whipping winds pounding flood-ravaged central Texas, putting recovery missions from the devastating 4th of July floods on pause. That rain raising the risk of even more flash flooding right now, with more than 170 people still missing across the state. Survivors are asking tough questions about the flood warning systems.
How many lives do we have to lose in order for them to fix the system? It's broken.
We will have a live report coming up from Texas Hill Country. Plus, the Grand Canyon going up in flames. 2 massive wildfires exploding near the North Rim, prompting evacuations and destroying dozens of buildings, including the historic Grand Canyon Lodge. We'll have a look at the race to contain the flames. And next, Trump's trade war escalating again. The president announcing 30% tariffs on 2 of the nation's largest trading partners, Mexico and the EU, starting on August 1st. We'll look at the fallout facing businesses and consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. And finally, a thaw in the royal rift. Could it be? Top aides for Prince Harry and King Charles reportedly meet in a bid to mend their frayed relationship. We're going to have all the details. But, Savannah, we start this hour with that latest round of flooding hitting central Texas. The rushing water so powerful it destroyed at least 1 home. And it comes as that area is still reeling from the devastating July 4th floods, which are being blamed for the deaths of at least 129 people statewide.
And more than 100 people are still missing from that flooding. But the latest round of rain forced crews to suspend the search for those victims. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky is in his hometown, Kerrville, Texas, and has more.
Yeah, good morning. And right now, with this rain falling, there is a concern we could see a replay of yesterday. And that is when crews had to vacate the river entirely, temporarily pausing their search out of fear that river was going to rise yet again. And this system we're seeing here, just a glimpse of other storms nationwide, all bringing an intense amount of rain. More dangerous weather across the country this weekend, from the hard-hit southwest to the Midwest to the Northeast, where more summer storms brought rain, wind, and flooding. Streets overwhelmed in New York State. Back in central Texas, the region still reeling from those devastating early July floods, and now hit with another round of flash flooding. In Lampasas County, this river reaching over 33 feet in a matter of hours. It all comes just over a week after the deadly flood in Kerr County that resulted in more than 130 deaths statewide. Now more questions are being raised about whether local officials could have done more to warn those in the flood zone. Kerrville City Manager telling me he's unsure if he received an alert on his phone from the National Weather Service, which was sent around 1 a.m.
I actually think I have my weather report stuff turned off, if I'm being honest.
I mean, you're the city manager.
No.
Why would you have your weather alerts turned off?
Because one, with my family, with first responders, and again, I'm in it every single day. My phone stays on 24 hours, 7 days a week. We're in constant communication with emergency responders.
Saying he has dedicated teams in place to handle weather updates.
So whether my stuff is on or not is really a moot point because we have teams of experts that can navigate these.
City leaders say they have yet to review their response. Meanwhile, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem discussing the federal government's response on Meet the Press and the future of FEMA. President Trump has criticized the Disaster Response Agency and floated getting rid of it.
I think he wants it to be remade so that it's an agency that is new in how it deploys and supports states.
And this morning, I have heard city, county, and state officials all pledge to give a full review to this flood response in the weeks and months following this. In the meantime, we are seeing symbols of resilience. I want to show you a photo of Camp Mystic on Chapel Hill there. You can see that M in Mystic lit up, 27 green bulbs for the 27 lives lost between campers and counselors. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Morgan, thank you so much. And also, a massive wildfire is spreading out of control at the Grand Canyon in Arizona. It's destroyed more than 50 structures. That includes a historic lodge and employee homes. NBC's Steve Patterson is on the ground at the Grand Canyon. He joins us with the latest. Hey, Steve, good morning.
Savannah, they are two dueling fires. Thankfully, nobody hurt, nobody injured, nobody killed in those fires. But now dozens of structures have been destroyed, including this historic launch in the North Rim. Meanwhile, firefighters having a tough time getting a hold of the fires. 0% containment between the both of them. Wildfires in the West having an impact on summer vacation plans.
We are all getting evacuated right now as fast as possible.
Two raging fires forcing hundreds of evacuations at Grand Canyon National Park.
They knocked on our cabin door and said that we had to do an emergency evacuation.
Just hours after hikers Amanda Travis and Jamie Coffin arrived at the Phantom Ranch Lodge, they were airlifted to safety by a helicopter.
We took off and it was immediate relief that we were going to be saved.
Some 50 to 80 structures have been lost in the fires, including one historic landmark now gone. The Grand Canyon Lodge, built nearly 100 years ago, was an icon for visitors as the only lodging inside the park on the canyon's north rim.
It's somber here.
Tom Sulpizio, president of the Grand Canyon's Historical Society, says the canyon's north rim will need to be rebuilt and restored, a project that could take years.
Cabins, campgrounds. There's a Park Service ranger station, and there's a visitor center, and all of those were lost.
Gusty winds and triple-digit temperatures making containment difficult, and the region will remain under a heat warning through this Wednesday. In Colorado, the Black Canyon in Gunnison National Park is also closed due to the wildfires in the area, with the flames even seen from space. Farther north, smoke from the Canadian wildfires blanketing much of the upper Midwest. Millions from Minnesota to Michigan now under unhealthy air quality levels.
I want to be outside in the summer, not sucking in all of this smoke.
Meanwhile, overnight, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs demanding a full investigation into the federal response of one of the fires that destroyed those buildings, wanting to know exactly what the management was when the fires were on the ground. Meanwhile, there may be some relief here. We're hearing there could be rain in the forecast, certainly at Welcome Side here at the Grand Canyon. Back to you.
Right, Steve, thank you so much.
In the meantime, history up in flames there. Thank you, Steve. This morning, another round of severe storms and flash flooding is on the way for a big stretch of the country.
That's right. Let's get a check on your morning news now weather with Michelle Grossman, who's here in studio. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. And you can see right behind me on this map all this green indicating the chance for showers and storms. And yes, again, we're going to see drenching rainfall leading to the chance of flash flooding. It's not just a couple spots. We're looking at places in the mid-Atlantic could see 3 to 5 inches of rain. We could see 5 inches, over 5 inches in portions of Florida, central Texas. You're getting some heavy rain right now in spots. We could see 3 to 5 inches there. Also could see some monsoonal moisture moving into the southwest. And then we have the heat alerts in the west. We're looking at temperatures well above normal for this time of year. It's hot already this time of year, but we are above average. I'll show you those numbers in just a minute. First, let's start with the flood alerts because we have 41 million people today under flood alerts. That includes a flood watch that is in the green portions of the mid-Atlantic and also down in Texas, parts of New Mexico, also where we were hard hit last week. And then flash flood warnings. These will pop in and out throughout the day. This indicates that there is a flooding happening now or it's imminent. So again, that will pop in and pop out. We're going to watch that very, very closely. This is why through Tuesday, we're looking at a lot of rainfall throughout portions of the northern tier of the nation, the southern tier of the nation, the eastern part of the nation. Where you see those brighter colors, that's where we're expecting the highest amounts of rainfall. So Florida, you're in for the next couple of days with an area of low pressure bringing tropical-like rain and heavy, heavy downpours. Locally, over 5 inches of rain is possible. We have a severe weather threat on top of that, in addition to that heavy rain from portions of New England into the mid-Atlantic, down to the southeast, Philadelphia, Roanoke, Savannah, Tallahassee, down to Miami. Notice the northern tier of the nation, we're looking at Grand Forks, also Rapid City, where we could see some hail, some damaging winds, tornado or two, and also parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley. So lots of spots today. Again, the usual risk with those thunderstorms, those strong to severe thunderstorms. Heat alerts, 18 million people impacted across the west into the southeast. We'll end it here because we are looking at temperatures into the triple digits. So yes, really warm for this time of year. It's always warm in the west, but we're going to tack on about 5 to 10 degrees above what is typical for this time of year.
Oof. All right, a lot going on.
In Texas, real quickly, that severe flooding threat is through tomorrow. How long is this going?
So we are going to see the pop-up storms today. We're looking at some pretty heavy rain falling at this hour and then through tomorrow. And we're going to keep that area of low pressure kind of spinning there. And it's scattered. It's not widespread, but still where it's going to fall. And it's really hard to pinpoint where it's going to fall. We're going to see very heavy rain falling.
Very scary.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the latest. Well, this morning, some of America's top trading partners are weighing their options after President Trump threatened new tariffs over the weekend. The president said he would hit both Mexico and the European Union with a 30% levy, which could rise if they retaliate. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest. Hey, Gabe, good morning.
Hey there, Savannah. Good morning. The White House is touting strong jobs numbers, but many key U.S. allies are now weighing whether to retaliate against the U.S. after President Trump threatened to dramatically raise tariffs if they don't reach trade deals by the end of the month. This all marks a significant escalation of the trade war. This morning, more top U.S. trading partners are dealing with President Trump's tariff threats. Over the weekend, the European Union and Mexico slapped with new 30% import taxes that will take effect August 1st.
We have tariffs pouring in at levels that we have never seen before, and they've only just started.
The president also threatening to raise the tariffs even higher if any of the countries retaliate, something European leaders are now considering.
We've prepared for this, and we can respond with countermeasures if necessary.
Last week, in a series of letters posted to social media, the president hit countries with tariffs ranging from 25 to 50%. Since Trump first announced tariffs in April, he's changed them multiple times. Despite the uncertainty, stocks have hit record highs, meaning many Americans' 401ks have benefited. But some experts warn the president's 50% tariff on copper imports could make phones, computers, and TVs more expensive. The cost of coffee beans from Brazil could also rise. So could the price of clothing, shoes, and accessories made overseas. The president last night saying he expects other countries to negotiate.
We're willing if they're willing to open up.
But he appears less optimistic about other foreign policy negotiations over the war between Ukraine and Russia.
But I am very disappointed with President Putin.
Now announcing he'll send Ukraine Patriot missiles.
We will send them Patriots, which they desperately need, because Putin really surprised a lot of people. He talks nice and then he bombs everybody in the evening.
This morning, the president is expected to meet with the NATO Secretary General here at the White House. Trump is also teasing what he's calling a major statement today involving Russia. It's not clear what that will be, but a bipartisan group of senators is urging the president to impose new sanctions against Moscow. Savannah.
All right, Gabe, thank you.
Staying in D.C., President Trump is facing growing backlash this morning from members of his own MAGA base over his administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Many conservatives are calling for Attorney General Pam Bondi to be fired after releasing a memo that said that there is no additional evidence to reveal in the case. NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson brings us more.
Hey there, Savannah and Sam. Good morning to you. This is a rift not just inside MAGA world, but inside the president's own administration, too, with one top official considering leaving. The president now says of his number 2 at the FBI, he believes he's still in the job. But all of it highlighting how the Epstein case has transformed into a political liability for President Trump as he tries to tamp down talk of a break in his base. President Trump today facing a revolt in the MAGA ranks over how his administration has handled the case of notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Late Sunday, trying to downplay dissatisfaction and backing his deputy FBI director, Dan Bongino.
I spoke to him today, Dan Bongino, and he sounded terrific, actually. No, I think he's in good shape.
Bongino considered resigning over the Epstein files after a heated confrontation with Attorney General Pam Bondi, according to a source familiar with his interactions and another person who has spoken with him. The former podcaster, one of multiple Trump loyalists who had promoted conspiracies about Epstein's prison suicide 6 years ago, but in his new job, acknowledging no cover-up, despite deep skepticism from others in the president's base. At a conservative conference this weekend, that fury on full display.
How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation? Clap.
With calls to fire Bondi, the president bringing Bondi to a soccer match Sunday, defending her as fantastic online, and writing, "What's going on with my boys?" and in some cases, gals, adding, "People should not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about." It comes after the DOJ released an unsigned 2-page memo last week saying it would not make additional disclosures in the Epstein case, reaffirming Epstein was not murdered and adding he did not maintain a client list that he used to traffic underage girls, contradicting what Bondi told Fox News in February.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
Bondi later saying she was referring to the Epstein files in general, as she is now squarely in the spotlight.
Pam, if you can't do your job, we'll find someone who will.
Far-right activist and Trump ally Laura Loomer is now publicly calling for a special counsel to investigate the handling of the Epstein case. But the president has made clear he wants to move past this and that he's standing by his attorney general. Savannah, Sam, back to you.
Hallie, thank you.
Let's get more on all this with NBC News national security and intelligence analyst Christopher O'Leary. Christopher, thanks so much for being with us this morning. So let's start by asking you about Attorney General Pam Bondi. So we heard there from Hallie that she's being accused of contradicting what she said about this alleged Epstein client list back in February. We just played that little bit from an interview where she had said, "It's sitting on my desk right now." Of course, though, you'd think that behind the scenes, she's sort of acting on what the president is telling her to do. So is she in any sort of trouble in this position? How detrimental do you think it is that there is that contradiction, at least on tape, for her position as AG?
Good morning. Well, there's self-evidently a contradiction. Clearly, words matter, and she, on more than one occasion indicated that she was going to release the file and that she had the list on her desk. Frankly, this is a conspiracy that the Attorney General, the FBI director and deputy director, and many others were the architects of. So they built this, and now they have to deal with the ramifications of it. But this is also a steady stream of misinformation and disinformation and propaganda that's been feeding the MAGA base for many years now, and they believe in these conspiracy theories. With Attorney General Bondi, I'm not quite sure that her job is in jeopardy at this point. The president really values loyalty, and if you look back to his first administration, he was very frustrated with Attorney General Sessions, who didn't do his bidding, and then later on, Attorney General Barr, who did not support the election denial strategy that the president was putting out. So now he has an Attorney General Bondi, somebody who clearly looks like she's going to carry out the president's will, whatever it may be.
It's also just such an interesting juxtaposition, right, Christopher? Because the other side to this is the FBI. As we just heard a second ago, Deputy Director Dan Bongino is considered resigning over this following a dispute with Bondi. And it was surreal to hear Laura Ingraham say over the weekend, Bondi or Bongino, who are you with? I mean, do you think this issue is driving a wedge between the FBI and the DOJ?
I do. I think it is, at least at the leadership level, which is extremely odd. I've never seen anything like it, certainly not in my career. And looking back at the history of the FBI and Department of Justice, the FBI is a subordinate unit to the Department of Justice. So there can't really be a fissure between the two. So that's problematic. But the other issue is you have to ask yourself the appropriateness of the President of the United States reaching directly down to the Deputy Director of the FBI. I've also never seen that before. Traditionally, the FBI leadership, the director, tries to maintain distance from the White House because we're supposed to be an independent, investigative, trustworthy agency. And now it looks like there's blending between, who the FBI leadership is supposed to be reporting to and where their loyalty lies.
You kind of touched on this, but does this potential rift here with leadership between the DOJ and the FBI have any risk for national security or intelligence generally?
There are several concerns on this matter. Number one, the morale within the FBI is at an all-time low. Anybody who will tell you that chaos is an effective form of leadership has clearly never led. It's going to affect the morale and the trust in leadership, but also the mission effectiveness of the FBI. And, that's national security, counterterrorism, counterespionage, cybersecurity, all things that will have severe ramifications on the safety and security of every citizen in the United States. The other parts are our foreign partners, our international partners. The FBI has maintained close partnerships with, intelligence agencies around the world. We share information. Some of those agencies will start questioning whether they can trust us. And then lastly, I'll say our adversaries, they'll look at this as an opportunity to maybe take action now because the FBI and the national security enterprise is is in a chaotic state.
All right, Christopher O'Leary, thank you so much for your expertise and time this morning.
All right, so in Kentucky right now, 2 people have been killed, several others injured after a man went on a shooting spree over the weekend. Authorities say the gunman fired at a trooper during a traffic stop near a local airport before then driving to a church where he shot and killed 2 women and injured several other people. NBC's Emily Ikeda has the very latest from the investigation.
Tragedy in Kentucky this morning, where authorities say 2 women were killed in a shooting at a Lexington church.
This is an ongoing, active investigation.
The deadly incident, part of a shooting spree that began near a local airport Sunday morning.
The trooper had pulled over a vehicle on Terminal Drive after receiving a license plate reader alert. The trooper was shot and the suspect fled.
The suspect then stole a car, police say. Investigators tracking that vehicle to the Richmond Road Baptist Church about 15 miles away, where the gunman had opened fire, shooting 4 people, according to authorities, 2 fatally.
Preliminary information indicates that the suspect may have had a connection to the individuals at the church.
Police say the suspect, whose identity has not been released, was shot and killed by responding officers. The county coroner identifying the 2 victims killed as 32-year-old Christina Combs and 72-year-old Beverly Gum, daughter and mother. According to public records, Gum appears to be the wife of the church's pastor, who was seen here on a Facebook live stream around the time of the violence.
But the gift of God is eternal life.
One of Gum's daughters telling the Lexington Herald leader the gunman arrived and asked for one of her sisters. When they said she wasn't there, he replied, "Well, someone is going to have to die then," and started shooting. Rachel Barnes posting, "My mom, Beverly Gum, and little sister, Christina Combs, I love you guys so much. I can't believe this is real."
Church was a small church, and the majority of the individuals that attend the church there are related. If not, they've been friends for many, many years.
Kentucky's Governor Andy Beshear says he's heartbroken, adding violence like this has no place in our Commonwealth or country.
Sometimes things happen. We just don't have a reason why. But we're going to be here for the people of Lexington.
Just crushing there. Emily Ikeda with that report. Thank you.
Well, now let's get to an NBC News exclusive. The parents of Ethan Chapin, one of the 4 murdered University of Idaho students, are speaking out in conjunction with Amazon Prime Video's new docuseries. And this is for the first time since Bryan Kohberger's shocking plea deal. Now, Kohberger pled guilty to the killings in order to avoid the death penalty. He's now facing life in prison without the possibility of parole when he's sentenced next week. Here's NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz with more.
Well, hey there. Yeah, that hearing was the first time that Stacey and Jim Chapin saw Bryan Kohberger in person. And they say as hard as that was, they feel like a weight has now been lifted off their shoulders. They're relieved that he'll be behind bars without years of appeals and that some of the gruesome details of their son's murder will not be made public. For now, their focus is on healing, moving forward as a family, and honoring Ethan's memory.
This morning, more than 2 years after the murder of their son Ethan, Stacey and Jim Chapin tell us in an exclusive interview they finally have closure.
When you heard that this plea deal was going to go through, what was your reaction?
If I could physically do a handstand at that time, I'd probably do one, because I am so ready for it to be done.
Ethan Chapin, along with his girlfriend Xana Kernodle and her housemates Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogan, all University of Idaho students, were brutally stabbed to death in November 2022 by Brian Koberger. Earlier this month, the former criminology student pled guilty to the murders in a plea deal that took the death penalty off the table. He's now expected to spend life in prison without parole.
I think our initial response was like an eye for an eye. But then we've spent a ton of time talking about it with prosecutors. And for us, we always felt like this was a better deal. I mean, he gets put away and there's no appeal system to it. And there were so many kids, including our own, that had been subpoenaed that no longer have this hanging over their heads. I mean, we just all get to go live our life.
There are some family members who feel like this plea deal now means that Brian Koberger won't face the highest form of punishment.
Everybody's entitled to grieve and feel how they want. Yeah,
But
it's just not how we feel.
He's going to get what's coming to him. I really don't care what happens to the guy. He's off the streets and he can't hurt any more kids.
And that's the most important
That's the most important thing.
At the plea hearing, the Chapins saw their son's killer in person for the first time.
It was cold and calculated and weirdly like an automated phone message. Yes. I mean, it was just like you expected some, I don't know,
There's just nothing.
remorse, emotion, something, and there was zero.
Did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
When they have to read through the charges, it was like, oh, here we go. I had to take a little. That one was tough.
That's tough to listen to.
Yeah.
Ethan's family says their focus now is honoring the amazing person that he was. His parents, and for the first time, his triplet siblings, Maisie and Hunter, sharing their story in a new Prime Video documentary about the murders.
I was so scared to go to bed. It was just silence. Because such a big member of our family just wasn't there anymore. What do you hope people take away from the documentary?
What great kids they were.
Yeah.
We made a decision as a family that we would tell our version of Ethan's story one time. He was an amazing kid, and it's reflected in that.
The Chapins also started a foundation, Ethan's Smile, to spread his joy, so far providing more than $100,000 in scholarships to nearly 90 students. The family finding ways to feel Ethan's presence.
We put Ethan's ashes into it.
And make sure he's never forgotten.
We all went and got tattoos. This was him, a note he wrote, like, I don't know, he probably was in the 4th grade.
Every morning, they talk to him.
You tell him what's going on in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's missed.
I miss you, dude.
Yeah.
But that's how
Peggy.
I start my day every day.
Big and small ways to honor Ethan's memory.
I have him where I need him, in my mind, in my heart, in my soul.
And the Chapins do not plan to be at Brian Koberger's sentencing hearing next week, where family members of the victims are going to have the opportunity to address Koberger and read impact statements. The Chapins say they have nothing to say and they don't want to waste any more energy on him. Instead, they plan to celebrate Ethan that day, go out on their boat and the lake that he loved. Back to you.
Wow, Liz, thank you.
Incredible interview there. Well, some tragic breaking news that we are following this morning, still developing. At least 9 people are dead after a fire tore through an assisted living facility in Fall River, Massachusetts overnight. That is about an hour's drive south of Boston. Flames erupting just before 10 o'clock at night on Sunday at the Gabriel House on Oliver Street. Firefighters were met with heavy smoke and flames near the facility's entrance when they arrived on the scene. In an emotional press conference, Fire Chief Jeffrey Bacon called the fire a, quote, unfathomable tragedy, adding that more than 30 people were rushed to the hospital. 5 firefighters suffered minor injuries. The cause of that blaze is unknown at this time.
Oh, just heartbreaking. All right, well, there's much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, a warning about those popular e-bikes as the number of kids headed to emergency rooms rises.
London representing in the sports world all over the place right now. Soccer news to get to, and Chelsea Football Club upended the odds to win the FIFA Club World Cup over the weekend. The English club from the Premier League defeated France's PSG 3-0 in yesterday's final in New Jersey. European champions PSG were the heavy favorites going into the match. But 2 goals from Chelsea's Cole Palmer inspired the London team to victory. However, tempers flaring at the final whistle when players and staff from both teams squared up to each other. You see the images there. PSG's manager had to be held back after he appeared to slap one of the Chelsea players in some ugly post-match scenes that threatened to overshadow the ultimate results. Oof. Not a lot of dignity there.
No, not sportsmanship. Yeah, yikes. All right.
Up next, Texas flood victims turning to FEMA for help rebuilding their lives.
That's right. We're going to take a look at the long and complicated process for securing that disaster relief money and how Texans are trying to fill in the gaps in the meantime. Stay with us.
Digging the music. We are back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with new pushback from an ex-Secret Service director.
Yeah, NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles here with his own theme song. He's got more for us. Ryan, good morning.
Guys, just don't make me sing, all right? Good morning, Savannah and Sam. And here's a look at some of the stories that we're tracking today in politics. The former director of the Secret Service is speaking out. Kimberly Cheadle ran the agency on the day of the assassination attempt against Donald Trump 1 year ago this week in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now, she said that she was responsible for asking for additional assets to protect Trump at the event, which included the sniper team that ultimately killed Thomas Crooks, the man who fired shots at Trump. Her pushback comes as a new Senate report concludes that the shooting was the result of a stunning failure by the agency. Let's go to North Carolina now, where there is a waiting game underway for President Trump's daughter-in-law, Laura. She is considered to be the frontrunner to seek the Republican nomination to run for Senate in her home state. The seat is open after the incumbent there, Tom Tillis, announced that he would not seek re-election. Several Republicans are interested in running, but will not enter the race if Trump runs. Democrats are hoping the popular former governor, Roy Cooper, enters the race for Senate. That could be one of the biggest races in the country. And questions continue to swirl around the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. President Trump has been critical of his unwillingness to drop interest rates. He's even suggested he may fire Powell, which would be an unprecedented move. The Fed is supposed to be politically independent. Now, one of Trump's top economic advisors, Kevin Hassett, said that the administration is looking into removing Powell and said that Trump would have cause to make the move. And that's where we start the day in politics. Guys, back to you. No singing today.
Yeah. Darn.
We'll look forward to your melodies next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Well, as Texas continues to battle severe weather, we're getting a clearer picture of the financial toll from the deadly July 4th flooding. AccuWeather has a preliminary estimate of $22 billion in damages and economic losses.
Yeah, not surprisingly, a staggering level of loss. That's people leaving there, I should say living there, wondering now, what's going to happen? When are they going to get the money that they desperately need to rebuild their lives? NBC's Aaron Gilchrist brings us more.
Deadly floods hit Texas Hill Country. People are sifting through decimated homes and trying to figure out how to start rebuilding. We hear about it time and time again after natural disasters, victims turning to FEMA for federal assistance. But how does it work and how long does it actually take? In the days after a catastrophe, the agency provides serious needs assistance for things like food, water, diapers, or fuel. A one-time payment of $770. But for long-term assistance, the kind you need to piece your home and life back together, the process is more complicated. And for Texas now, it starts with whether you have flood insurance.
So few people have flood insurance across the country, especially in inland communities like what we've seen over the past week. Most flood insurance policies are sold through FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program. That's not the same as emergency grants.
If you have FEMA's insurance policy, steps for filing a claim can be found on its website. It says it can take up to 8 weeks to get paid. And if you don't have that, FEMA says you have to file a claim with your insurance company and hear back, exhausting all other options before applying for individual assistance from the agency. And all that can take a while.
Every claim is different. There's not a one-size-fits-all. Some are simple to resolve and some are more complex.
FEMA has come under intense scrutiny in the last few years for how it's handled previous disasters.
8 months later, some places around Asheville still look like a disaster zone, and the lives here still in limbo question support from the federal government.
President Trump also criticized FEMA when visiting Asheville a few months after Hurricane Helene.
Fundamentally changing, terminating, or overhauling FEMA.
We are back with a warning from emergency room doctors. This is because of a rise in the number of traumatic injuries involving children and e-bikes. NBC News correspondent Erin McLaughlin spoke to one family who lost their 13-year-old son. She's got a closer look at why these bikes can be so dangerous.
My heart is broken. It's still broken.
The parents of 13-year-old Emiliano Munoz, or Emmy, say their son loved to play soccer, hang out with friends, and ride his electric bike.
Me llamó 3 minutos antes.
He called me 3 minutes before and he said, "Mom, I'm going to the soccer field." His mother, Maria, says,
Me dijo, "Mamá, voy."
Minutes later, Emmy was gone, killed, his parents say, when his e-bike collided with a cable stretched between a fence and a post. E-bikes are essentially bikes equipped with electric motors. You can either pedal, rely on the motor to propel you, or both. Some can hit speeds in excess of 20 miles per hour. Research shows that while they've been growing in popularity, so too has the number of accidents and near misses. Even the batteries that power the bikes, especially if manufactured or handled improperly, can be dangerous.
These machines go much faster than a regular bicycle. We see a lot of extremity fractures, a lot of broken bones. We see a lot of facial fractures. And sadly, a lot of brain bleeds, traumatic brain injuries.
Dr. John Draus is a pediatric trauma surgeon in Florida. He says his hospital has seen an exponential rise in the number of e-bike related injuries, skyrocketing from just 3 in 2022 to 74 injuries last year. Halfway through 2025, they've already treated up to 60 kids, mostly between the ages of 10 and 16. Would you allow your child to ride an e-bike?
No, I would not. And I have 2 sons with the brain injuries. These can be very sad, very life-altering events.
Matt Moore is from People for Bikes, the trade association for the United States bicycle industry, which includes e-bikes.
Electric bicycles are pretty regulated. The problem is that some of these devices, we call them e-motos, attempt to be both a motorcycle or an electric dirt bike, but sold as an electric bicycle. But they can be unlocked or unlimited, have the speed governor removed, and now they're a 35-mile-per-hour electric moped or motorcycle, and a child is operating it on a public street.
But even, say, a child going 20 miles per hour is very fast.
It is fast. And many of our manufacturers recommend that you need to be 16 to use their product.
Emmy's parents say at the time of the e-bike accident, he was wearing his helmet and safety gear. The family lawyer tells NBC News they plan to file a lawsuit to prevent future tragedies, telling our affiliate they'll never be the same.
I'm so proud of him. I never told him, but I'm so proud of him. He was my life.
Our thanks to Erin McLaughlin for that report. Just absolutely heartbreaking. Well, the trade association that represents e-bike manufacturers, they say the industry is well regulated across 44 states, but those regulations vary by state. I'll give you an example. In California, helmets are required for anyone under 18, but many states have no helmet requirement at all. The industry, though, does recommend specialized safety helmets if you are riding an e-bike.
Feels like in this situation, more regulations probably better.
Necessary,
than
yeah.
this. Let's get to some financial headlines this morning. A new survey finds that more and more Americans are hanging onto their homes this year.
CNBC's Bertha Coombs joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Bertha, good morning.
Hey, Sam and Savannah, you know, if you refinance, say, 4 years ago, you've got a sub 3% mortgage. That may be why more and more Americans are reluctant to sell their homes right now. A new Bankrate survey finds more than half say there's just no mortgage rate at which they'd feel comfortable selling right now. A majority say that they're uncomfortable buying another home no matter what happens with rates. Among those that would be open to buying a home, 2/3 say they would need a mortgage rate below 5%. We haven't seen that in a long time. And only 3% of people would be comfortable refinancing with rates currently at 6% or higher. Bitcoin is hitting A record above $120,000 today, as Congress is considering a number of bills this week aimed at creating clear regulations for digital assets. The world's largest cryptocurrency has jumped more than 10% in just the past week. House lawmakers will consider the Genius Act, which would allow private companies to issue stablecoins. It's already been passed by the Senate. They'll also take up a measure to establish clear lines between the SEC and the CFTC for regulating crypto and other digital tokens. Meantime, Superman was up and away at the box office last weekend. The Warner Brothers movie earning an estimated $122 million in the U.S. and Canada in its opening weekend and $217 million worldwide. The film cost about $225 million to produce. Superman is helping to propel a summer movie market that's largely been boosted by movies attached to known franchises such as Lilo and Stitch and Jurassic World Rebirth. The box office is up 15% compared to a year ago, but still down about 24% from the pre-pandemic summer in 2019. I'm not sure about these Jurassic remakes because it never turns out well. How is it that they keep thinking they can restart those dinosaurs?
That's a good point.
Right?
It's a question for the ages, and yet we just keep going back into the well over and over again.
I do want to see it, though. I've heard some good things.
Yeah, me too. Not going to lie.
I do kind of like them. And I'd see Superman. Nobody's seen it here, right? You haven't seen it?
There's been so many. The original for me, I'm sorry, is just, that's the top of the top.
There you go.
Bertha.
Thanks, Bertha.
Well, there is an urgent safety reminder from wildlife experts after a scary encounter in California. A hiker in Los Padres National Forest coming face to face with one of the state's largest predators, and she managed to capture the entire sequence on video. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra has the full story.
No.
Terrifying moments on a Southern California trail.
No.
A local hiker suddenly face to face with a mountain lion.
And it would walk and look at me and walk a little more and look at me. And that was terrifying.
Courtney Rasura was hiking alone on the Gridley Iron Trail in Ojai, California on July 3rd when she says she spotted a mountain lion in a nearby bush. She says she immediately went into survival mode and her instincts kicked in.
I put my arms up. I yelled at it. I said, go away, go away. It knew I was there, obviously, at that point. I didn't feel like it was going to run down at me.
Experts say Rasura did exactly what you're supposed to do if you and a mountain lion come face to face.
What this woman did, which was very clever, is she asserted herself as not being prey.
Forrest Galante is a wildlife expert and biologist. He says mountain lion sightings across the United States are not atypical, including unconfirmed sightings in places where mountain lions haven't been seen in years, like this large cat-like animal who was caught on a Ring camera in Rochester, New York, prompting local police to issue a shelter-in-place for residents after the first reported sighting.
I just kept running. Row, I heard the row. I spent off. I ain't playing with no lion.
Galante says there are things you can do to try to minimize your chances of running into a mountain lion while hiking.
If you act like prey, the predator will treat you like prey. And so be large, be loud, be assertive, always maintain eye contact. If you can, throw something like a rock or something like that while making noise without bending over and making yourself look small.
But he warns that animals are unpredictable, and even when you do all the right things, the outcome can still be tragic. Last year, a man was killed by a mountain lion in Northern California and his brother severely injured, even after their family said they followed expert advice to make themselves appear larger. According to California's Department of Fish and Wildlife, this was the first time a mountain lion killed a person there in 20 years. But Galante says at the end of the day, it's on us, the humans, to share Mother Nature with our big cat neighbors.
I don't think we should fear mountain lions. What I do think we should do is be well educated and understand the risks we're taking when we decide to go on a hike.
For Rasura, she says she's now more vigilant and better prepared than ever, hitting that same trail the very next day.
I took bear spray with me and an air horn. I was like, yeah, I'm going to face this. I'm going to face my fears. I'm not going to let this stop me.
Some new tools and a changed perspective she'll keep for the rest of her life. Marissa Parra, NBC News.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's pretty frightening.
This sure is.
Thank you, Marissa. Coming up next, one of the great American novels, The Great Gatsby, turning 100 years old this year.
Next, we'll be hearing from one of the stars of the 1974 film edition of the book to talk about how the movie launched his career and put a Rhode Island town on the map. That's when we come back.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.